Cruising has a funny way of making everyone else look like they know exactly what they're doing. And even if you've cruised before, you've probably heard someone ask at least one of these, or maybe you've been the experienced cruiser helping someone else work out what is normal, what costs extra, and what they absolutely should not do on board. If you're new to cruising, you might be wondering whether the tap water is actually safe to drink, if you can stay on board longer on the last day because your flight is not until later, or what actually happens if someone gets left behind in port. And then, there are the dining room questions people do not always ask out loud. Is the main dining room really included? Do you have to eat with strangers every night and explain your whole life story over bread rolls? And can you order more than one meal or dessert without the waiter silently judging your life choices? And that's only scratching the surface, because some of the questions in this video are practical, some are awkward, and some are the kind cruise staff probably remember long after the passenger has walked away. Because cruising has its own little rules, words, habits, and behind-the-scenes surprises, and nobody knows all of them before their first cruise. And make sure you stay for the last one, because we're finishing with some of the weirdest questions cruise staff actually get asked, including the kind that probably make them pause, smile politely, and wonder how to answer without laughing. So today, we're answering 15 cruise questions passengers are often too embarrassed to ask, but probably should. Number 1. Is there really a jail on a cruise ship? Yes. Cruise ships really can have a jail on board, but it is not the dramatic movie version with rusty bars, flashing lights, and someone yelling, "You'll never get away with this." On a ship, it is usually called the brig. And no, you do not get sent there because you took one too many bread rolls from the buffet or wore socks with sandals to formal night. The brig is normally used for serious situations, things like violence, theft, major drunken behavior, threatening other passengers, or anything that puts the safety of the ship at risk. Most of the time, if someone is causing trouble, security will deal with it quietly. They might be warned, watched more closely, or confined to their cabin. But if the situation is serious enough, the passenger can be held in a secure area until the ship reaches the next port. Then, local police or port authorities may take over. And this is the part some people forget. A cruise ship might feel like a floating resort, but it is still a controlled environment with thousands of people on board. If someone becomes dangerous, the crew cannot exactly call a taxi and send them home. They need somewhere safe to keep that person away from everyone else. So, yes, there can be a jail on a cruise ship. You will probably never see it. You will hopefully never need it. And if your cruise is going well, the closest you should ever get to being locked up is being trapped in a lift with someone explaining their entire buffet strategy. Number 2. What happens if someone dies on board? This is one of those questions people feel awkward asking, but almost everyone has quietly wondered it. What actually happens if someone dies on a cruise ship? And the answer is, cruise ships are prepared for it. Large cruise ships can carry thousands of passengers and crew, and many cruises have older travelers on board. So while it is not common, natural deaths do happen at sea. When it happens, the medical team is called, the area is kept private, and the person's family or travel companions are supported. But here's the part that surprises people. Cruise ships usually have a small morgue on board, not something passengers see, not something listed between the spa and the steakhouse on the deck plan. But it is there because the ship may be at sea for days before reaching a port where proper arrangements can be made. Depending on the situation, the person may be taken off the ship at the next suitable port, or they may remain on board until the cruise returns to its home port. That depends on the family, the cruise line, local authorities, and the laws of the country the ship is visiting. Sometimes you may hear code words over the ship's speaker system for medical emergencies, but most passengers will never know what has happened. And that is the point. Cruise lines do not turn it into a public event. They handle it quietly, privately, and with as much dignity as possible. Number 3. Can someone really fall overboard by accident? This is probably one of the biggest fears first-time cruisers have. Can you just fall off a cruise ship? You are walking along the deck, the ship rocks slightly, the wind picks up, and suddenly you imagine yourself flying over the side like a loose napkin. But the truth is, cruise ships are designed to stop that from happening. The railings are high, balcony barriers are high, and public decks have safety barriers. So no, you do not just casually trip and tumble over the edge like you missed a step at the supermarket. When someone does go overboard, there is usually something else involved. Climbing where they should not climb, sitting on a railing, standing on furniture near a balcony, heavy alcohol use, risky behavior, or a serious personal crisis. So the rule is simple. Enjoy the balcony, enjoy the deck, take the photos, but keep your feet on the floor and your common sense switched on. Because the only thing that should be going overboard on your cruise is your plan to start a diet at the buffet. And while those first few questions are the ones people whisper about because they sound dramatic, some of the most useful cruise questions are actually the ordinary ones passengers only think to ask when they are already on board. Number 4. Can the ship actually leave without you? Yes, the ship can absolutely leave without you. And no, the captain is not sitting there thinking, but what about Barry from Deck 8? He said he was just buying one more magnet. Cruise ships run on strict port schedules. They have to follow tide times, port rules, weather conditions, fuel planning, crew schedules, and the next destination. So when the ship says all aboard is at 4:30, that does not mean start wandering back at 4:30 with an ice cream in one hand and a shopping bag in the other. It means be back before then. This is where passengers get caught, especially in ports. They think they have plenty of time, then a taxi is late, the tour runs over, the streets are crowded, or they forget the ship is using ship time instead of local time. Suddenly, that relaxed port day turns into a full Olympic sprint down the pier while everyone on the balcony is filming. If you miss the ship, you may have to arrange and pay for your own transport to the next port. That could mean flights, hotels, taxis, new documents, and a whole lot of panic you definitely did not budget for. The safest rule is simple. Take a photo of the all aboard sign before you leave the ship, set an alarm, and aim to be back early. Not just barely on time. Because nobody wants to become the pier runner everyone else talks about at dinner. Number 5. Where do the crew sleep and live? Cruise crew do not magically disappear into a cupboard when their shift ends. They live in a part of the ship passengers usually never see. Below the guest decks, there is a whole crew-only world. Crew cabins, dining areas, laundry rooms, storage areas, workspaces, offices, recreation rooms, and sometimes even a crew bar or small gym. The cabins are usually much smaller than passenger cabins, and many crew members share with another person. So while passengers are complaining that their balcony feels a bit cramped, someone downstairs is probably sharing a tiny room, working long hours, and still smiling while handing out dessert. Crew life is not like being on holiday. They work hard, often for months at a time, and the ship is both their workplace and their home. They eat on board, sleep on board, socialize on board, and somehow still remember your name after you asked for extra towels once. So yes, the crew live on the ship. They just live in a hidden part of it that keeps everything upstairs running smoothly. And once you know that, it makes you appreciate them even more, especially when you realize your quick little holiday is their everyday life. Number 6. What happens to toilet waste and leftover food? This is one of those questions people pretend they have never wondered, but come on. Thousands of people on a ship, endless buffet plates, all those bathrooms. Where does it all go? No, the ship is not just leaving a giant toilet trail across the ocean. Modern cruise ships have serious waste systems on board. Toilet waste, shower water, laundry water, and kitchen water are collected and treated through special systems before anything can be discharged. There are strict environmental rules about what can be released, where it can happen, and how clean it has to be first. Food waste is also handled separately. Leftover food that has already been served is not reused for passengers. Food scraps are collected, processed, and either treated on board or offloaded properly in port, depending on the ship and local rules. Behind the scenes, it is a much bigger operation than people realize. There are crew members whose job is to deal with rubbish, recycling, food waste, water treatment, and environmental systems every single day. So, while passengers are upstairs wondering whether to go back for a second dessert, there is a whole team downstairs making sure the ship does not turn into a floating disaster zone. Not glamorous, but very important. Number 7. Is the tap water actually safe to drink? Yes. The tap water on a cruise ship is generally safe to drink. And that surprises some people because the ship is surrounded by seawater, so they imagine the tap water is just ocean water with a hopeful attitude. But cruise ships either take on fresh water in port or make their own water on board using desalination systems. That means seawater is treated, filtered, and turned into fresh water that can be used for drinking, cooking, showers, ice, coffee, and everything else that needs clean water. So, The water from your cabin sink is usually safe. The water at the buffet is safe. The ice is made from safe water. And no, the kitchen is not making soup with mysterious pirate water from the side of the ship. Some passengers still prefer bottled water because of taste, habit, or sensitive stomachs, and that is fine. Ship water can sometimes taste a bit different from what you are used to at home, but in normal circumstances, cruise ship tap water is treated and tested so passengers can drink it safely. So if you are worried, bring a reusable bottle and fill it from approved water stations. Just do not press your bottle directly against the dispenser, because nobody wants your bottle mouth touching the thing everyone else uses. Number 8. Do I really have to go to the muster drill? Yes, you really do have to do the muster drill. And no, I was busy looking for the buffet is not considered a medical exemption. The muster drill is the cruise ship safety briefing. It shows you where to go in an emergency, what the alarms sound like, and what basic instructions you need to follow if something serious happens on board. The word muster just means to gather, which is why your muster station is the place you would go if there was a real emergency. These days, many cruise lines make it easier than it used to be. You might watch part of the safety briefing on the app or cabin TV, then check in at your muster station instead of standing in a huge crowd for ages, but you still have to complete it. If passengers skip it, the crew has to chase them up, announcements can keep going, and the ship may even be delayed while everyone is accounted for. So yes, it might feel boring. But it is quick, it matters, and once it is done, you can get back to the real first-day emergency. Finding lunch before everyone else has the same idea. And now that we've covered the strange things happening behind the scenes, let's get into the cruise questions that sound simple, but can quietly catch out first-time passengers once they're actually on board. Number 9. What does a guaranteed cabin really mean? A guaranteed cabin sounds fancy, but it basically means this. You choose the cabin type, but the cruise line chooses the exact cabin. So if you book a guaranteed balcony, you should get a balcony cabin, or sometimes better. But you usually do not get to pick the room number, the deck, or the location. And that is where the gamble comes in. Sometimes it works out beautifully. You might pay less and end up with a great cabin in a good spot. Some passengers even get lucky with upgrades. But other times, you could end up somewhere less ideal. Under a noisy public deck, near a lift, far from everything, right above a lounge, or in a cabin that technically matches what you booked, but is not exactly what you pictured when you were dreaming peacefully at home. So, is a guaranteed cabin bad? Not always. It can be a smart way to save money if you are flexible and not too fussy. But if cabin location matters to you, if you are a light sleeper, if you get seasick, if you need to be near the lifts, or if you really do not want surprises, choose your own cabin instead. Because a guaranteed cabin can be a bargain. But it can also be the cruise version of saying, "Surprise me," and then finding out the ship has a very strange sense of humor. Number 10. Can you stay on board longer on the last day if you have a late flight? No, not usually. And this is one of those things that catches first-time cruisers because they think the ship works like a hotel. At a hotel, if your flight is late, you might ask for a late checkout, leave your bags at reception, and wander around for a few hours. But a cruise ship has to clear every passenger from the previous sailing before the next group can board. They need to reach what is often called a zero count, meaning everyone from your cruise is off the ship. So even if your flight is not until the afternoon or evening, you still have to disembark when your group is called. That does not mean you have to sit miserably at the airport for 8 hours, although many of us have done that and questioned every life choice that led us there. Some cruise lines offer post-cruise excursions that store your luggage and drop you at the airport later. You can also book a day room at a hotel, use luggage storage, plan a relaxed lunch, or choose a later transfer. Number 11. Is the main dining room really included? Yes. On most mainstream cruise lines, the main dining room is included in your cruise fare, and this is one of those questions that makes total sense if you have never cruised before, because the main dining room can look like a proper restaurant. There are menus, waiters, table settings, courses, desserts, and people walking in like they know exactly what is going on. So it is easy to think, hang on, am I about to be charged for this? But usually no. The standard main dining room meals are included. You can go there for dinner, and on many ships, also for breakfast or lunch, depending on the schedule. That does not mean every single thing is free. Some special items, premium steaks, lobster, certain drinks, or upgraded menu choices may cost extra. So if you are unsure, just ask, is there an extra charge for this? The staff will not think you are silly. They have heard it before. And honestly, it is much better to ask than spend half the cruise eating only at the buffet because you thought the dining room was secretly waiting to attack your onboard account. So yes, the main dining room is usually included. Use it. You paid for it. And if anyone makes you feel silly for asking, just remember, they had a first cruise once too. Number 12. Do I have to eat with strangers in the dining room? This is one of those questions people do not always ask out loud, but they definitely think about. Do I have to sit with strangers every night? And possibly explain where I'm from, what I do, how many cruises I've been on, and why I chose the chicken while my soup slowly goes cold? The answer is, usually no. On many cruise lines, you can request your own table, especially if you choose flexible dining or anytime dining. Couples, families, and groups can often ask to sit by themselves, although it always depends on availability. Some ships still offer traditional dining, where you have the same table, same time, and same waiters each night. Sometimes that may mean sitting with other passengers, especially if you're traveling solo or as a couple. But if you do not want that, ask early. Speak to the maitre d' or dining staff as soon as you board, or check your dining setup in the cruise app if the ship uses one. The earlier you ask, the better chance they have of moving things around. And to be fair, shared tables are not always bad. Some people love them. You can meet lovely passengers, hear travel stories, and end up with cruise friends you actually want to see again. But if the idea of making small talk with strangers every night sounds less like a holiday and more like jury duty with bread rolls, you do have options. So no, you usually do not have to eat with strangers for the whole cruise, but do not wait until night 4 to mention it. By then, you may already know everyone's grandkids, medical history, and preferred dessert order. Number 13. Can you order more than one meal or dessert in the dining room? Yes. On many cruise lines, you can order more than one thing in the main dining room. And this surprises a lot of first-time cruisers, because on land, if you order 2 starters, 2 mains, and 3 desserts, people start looking at you like you are training for something. But cruising works a little differently. If you cannot decide between the soup and the salad, you can often ask for both. If 2 desserts sound good, you can ask. If you want to try something new, but you are not sure you will like it, you can ask your waiter what they recommend. That is one of the fun parts of cruising. You get to try things you might not normally order at home. But do not assume every single thing is unlimited. Some cruise lines now charge extra for certain premium items, second lobster tails, extra mains, specialty dishes, or upgraded menu choices. So the easiest question is there an extra charge for that? That one sentence can save you from a surprise on your onboard account later. So, yes, you can often order more than one thing. Just be sensible, ask first, and do not treat the menu like a dare, because nobody wants to be remembered as the passenger who ordered 6 desserts for the table when everyone knew exactly who they were really for. Number 14. Is coffee, tea, and water included? Or do you pay extra? This one confuses people because the answer is usually yes and no. Basic drinks like regular coffee, tea, water, and sometimes lemonade or iced tea are usually included in places like the buffet or main dining room. But specialty drinks are different. If you go to the onboard cafe and order a latte, cappuccino, fancy tea, fresh juice, bottled water, energy drink, smoothie, soda, or anything with a tiny umbrella in it, there is a good chance it costs extra unless you have a package that covers it. That is where people get caught. They hear coffee is included and then wonder why the nice cafe coffee has a charge. The free coffee is usually the regular kind from the buffet or dining room, not the barista-made one that looks like it has its own social media manager. Same with water. Tap water and water stations are usually included. Bottled water is often extra. So before you start ordering drinks all over the ship, check what your cruise fare or drinks package actually covers. Because there is a big difference between coffee is included and that caramel iced whatever with whipped cream is included. One wakes you up, the other wakes up your onboard account. Number 15. What are the weirdest questions cruise staff actually get asked? Cruise staff hear every kind of question you can imagine. Some are helpful. Some are nervous first-timer questions. And some probably make the crew take a very deep breath before answering. One of the classics is, who drives the ship when the captain is having dinner? And fair question if you have never thought about it before. But no, the ship is not just drifting around unsupervised while the captain enjoys dessert. There are trained officers on the bridge at all times, and the captain is not the only person who knows which way the ocean is. Another one is, can I fish from the ship? And while it might sound tempting to drop a line over the side and see what bites, no, cruise ships are not floating fishing piers. Apart from safety rules, the ship is moving, the decks are crowded, and nobody wants a fishing hook flying past them while they are trying to enjoy a cocktail. Then there is the cabin safe confusion. Some passengers have looked at the little safe in the cabin and wondered if it was a microwave, which is understandable for about 3 seconds. Until you realize your leftover pizza is not going to come out warm, it is just going to come out slightly more secure. And then there are the towel animals. Some passengers see a little elephant, dog, or monkey sitting on the bed and wonder, can I take this home? And you can see why. After a few days at sea, you start getting strangely attached to a towel with sunglasses. But no, you usually should not pack the towel animal in your suitcase. It is still made from the ship's towels, and those towels need to stay on board. Take a photo, give it a name if you must, and enjoy it while it lasts. But do not turn the cabin steward's laundry into your souvenir collection. The funny thing is, most of these questions are not actually stupid. They usually come from people trying to understand a world they have never been part of before. And that is really the point of this whole video. Cruising has its own little language, rules, habits, and surprises. Nobody knows all of it before their first cruise, and even experienced cruisers still learn new things all the time. So if you have ever wondered something strange about cruising, you're probably not the only one. Someone else has wondered it too. They just may not have been brave enough to ask. If this video helped you, made you laugh, or answered something you had wondered about, please click the like button. It really does help the channel. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what's one cruise question you've always wondered about? Or, if you're the experienced cruiser in the group, what's one question you've helped another passenger answer?